Hey, welcome to Tangible Takeaways. This is our holiday edition, part 2. Today we're going to be talking about disagreement in family settings. What are you guys going to tell them?
Hey, I'm Paul, and I can't wait to tell you how to buy your family's love when you disagree with them.
Yeah, you will. And I'm Mike, and I'm just going to talk about the importance of listening at these times.
Yeah, all that and more in this episode of Tangible Takeaways. Hey, welcome to Tangible Takeaways, our holiday edition. This is part 2. Paul, Mike, thanks for being on.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good time. And what we're thinking about here in this segment, as we're thinking about just holiday gatherings and things like that, is we're thinking about just this topic of disagreement, right? Disagreeing with my family, which we've probably all had even more disagreements in the last year with our family than... I mean, not you guys. You guys are pastors, right? That doesn't happen. But we've probably had more disagreement within our families, even when you get into extended families, than any other year. And now we're going to get together over the holidays and try to be a family again. Or maybe you might even have some family members that aren't going to be there because of their opinions on just the season that we're in and things like that. And so you've got all of these divisions that are going to be felt in a family gathering. So as we're talking about disagreement within a family, let's just start with this. Does it matter that my family's disunified? Should I try to do anything about it, or do I just, it's kind of that age-old like movie about a family get together over the holidays where it's like, we're just gonna bear through it and get through this holiday, and then we'll just kind of forget that they exist until next year when the holidays come around. Does it matter?
I mean, I think in terms of comfort, yeah, it matters. I mean, it's hard when you're, with family. You just wanna be comfortable. You really don't want all that tension. So from that standpoint, I just think from our own comfortability with everything, it matters. I think it matters too, even from, God's always got designs on our gatherings, and it certainly matters from that perspective that we're aware that, God has things that He's trying to do, and I think honestly, conflict is a great opportunity for God to do some work in our lives. So yeah, I think from those two standpoints, I don't know, Paul?
Yeah, no, I think same thing. I mean, I think of course it matters. We want to be unified. We want to go to a family gathering and actually enjoy it and not just have this tension. But there is a side where you're going to have to, at some level, bear up with people who you disagree with. And sometimes it is a holiday might not be the right time to have the existential debates going on. Yeah. So you have to kind of know, what was your relationship with kind of this pre-COVID world? What was your relationship like in the midst of it as you engage whatever family and whatever disagreements you might come up with? So that's kind of, it's tough. Yeah.
I like that there's a practical sense to it of like, well, why does a family gathering have to be more uncomfortable than it needs to be? Like, let's enjoy each other. Yeah. But then I think there's also, like you guys are saying, there's a biblical ethic too of like, there is a value on unity, on being at peace with others as much as it is in our power, right? Yeah. So with that said, if we're gonna go in with that kind of foundation to family disagreements of like, I wanna be unified with my family, is this the kind of thing then that like, I'm looking for maybe some gauges on how we know what to do in these conversations? Should I try to talk with these family members that there's gonna be disagreements with ahead of time? Should I try to avoid the topic completely at a family gathering? Does it depend on the topic? Like, what's your take on that? How do you navigate those disagreements in family functions? Do you try to get out ahead of it, or do you just try to kind of avoid it and say, hey, we don't need to get into it because I love you because you're part of my family, or where do you land on that?
Kind of, personally, I land a little bit based on the previous relationships. So this is a very real conversation for my family right now, even coming into the Christmas holidays here. And so it is a little bit of, what was my relationship like before? Yes, I've had previous conversations before the gathering. Hey, let's talk about this. There's a side of me that when I'm there, I do want to avoid some of these conversations because I just want to be with the family. I just want to let's laugh and share one another and agree to disagree and not get into it. Kids are there, in-laws are there. There's so many other moving parts. So to me, it's very much contextualized to what my relationship was like with brothers, sisters, in-laws, parents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and all of that. So I don't look at like, ooh, I have a holiday dinner. Now's the time to like express my opinion and convince you.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, and that's not my relationship with the family beforehand. So, maybe if that was the dynamic of the family where it doesn't matter what it was.
We deal with whatever
you were
around
always
the dinner
having
table.
a dinner table. then okay. But that's not how my family interacts. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess, as I'm thinking through this, it's just like, certainly we don't want to be reactive. Like, we don't want to put like zero thought into this going into the gathering.
Right.
I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. I think we want to be proactive and maybe just think through, so what are the ways that I can be proactive? I mean, would it be good to have a pre-conversation before the gathering? And again, family dynamics are so interesting, and the way my family works and your family works. I mean, just different. And but I think thinking it through, praying it through, being in a good place, personally, spiritually, as you're entering that is important. So make sure you carve out some time to be ready, to just be ready to, to be in a safe, relaxed, I'm ready for this. If this comes up, this is how I want to approach it with this person or that person, and just kind of know who those high flyers are going to be this Christmas, or so I don't know.
Yeah, because even depending on the passion levels involved in the conversation, right? There's going to be certain people at a family gathering that it's like the way that you're going to think about it ahead of time is like, we definitely don't want to get into it because we're not going to go to a rational place, right? So if it comes up, it's not even going to be worthwhile for us to dig into it. So I'm going to try to kind of end that conversation as soon as it begins. I
know my wife and I have kind of had escape plans, not in the sense that we're leaving the space, but that we're leaving a conversation and how we can help people, help each other exit conversations that aren't going well, that we can anticipate ahead of time. So sometimes that's helpful, what's the escape plan going to be, I'm even thinking as you're talking about proactive stuff, I'm thinking about like some families, they might need a seating chart, right? Like these people are not going to sit next to each other, right? Like it's just not going to be helpful for, like you're going to talk to the people that you're sitting next to at the family table. Can I make sure that my extended family doesn't watch this ahead of time so they don't know like how I'm strategizing? They're like, it's an exit strategy.
Oh, there's a seating chart now. Oh, Mike, why am I not sitting next to you?
Yeah. But I mean, is there anything else in that proactive category? I like how practical that is, like that you feel like you've done or thought, man, this would work in a family setting for kind of getting out ahead of some of the issues that might be there.
I thought what you said was good. Have you carved out space for yourself to think, how am I going to respond when this conversation or this, or depending on if it's this personality or this person, then is that an escape plan? How do I do that? And then preparing my own heart, knowing, okay, I got to make sure I'm in a good place. Yeah. So that I'm not, there's not a trigger word that just causes me to go, okay, let's go to it, Yeah. And I would say for us, it's been, our family gatherings go much better when there's like some planned fun activities. And so just maybe, working with whoever you need to work with to say, what can we do that would be just, I don't know, just fun, whether it's the gift exchange or it's a board game, or, we're going to bring this new game we're all going to learn to play. Or maybe that's the thing that sets some people off, is they're way too competitive, and that's not, we need to avoid that at all costs. So we're going to do, something else. And so I think just maybe some of those kinds of
I like that too, breaking it up, right? So we're not just all trapped in a house going stir crazy with each other, and the longer that we talk, the more intense it's going to get, right? But we've got things strategically in there to kind of break it up, and so that we can still enjoy the space. Yeah. So now let's shift to, that's some of kind of the pre-stuff, but now let's shift to, say I get into a conversation with a family member that I disagree with, and it's in the appropriate setting. It's either beforehand, or kids are off doing this thing and we're just still sitting at the table talking about it. And this is somebody that I want to be in an intimate relationship with, right? There might be some people in our family that it's like, hey, we were never really that close. I even like what you said, Paul, of like, there's some people I just need to know where the relationship is at, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't need to agree on these topics for us to be close, because we were never super close and we're just family, and that's okay. But then there's other family members that might be a sibling or even a cousin that we were really close to, or whatever it is, that's like, hey, I want to kind of repair a little bit of this.
Yeah.
How do I represent Jesus well in that discussion and not just my own opinion, especially if it's something I'm passionate about?
And I would say, right out of the chute, be ready to listen. Be a really good listener. And I guess what I mean by that is, you're hearing what they're saying, but I think it's really helpful to say things like, so what I'm hearing you say is, so clarify with them, so that they know, number one, you've been listening, and so that that you're actually understanding what it is they're trying to say. Because sometimes when we haven't been together with people for a while, they may be using language, not foul language or offensive language, but they may be using language that we haven't been, using at where we live. But they're talking, and they may be using a term, and maybe they mean it differently. So just listen carefully, ask clarifying questions, and
instead of that overreactivity,
right? Instead of wanting to be heard or wanting to just jump on things, take a good listening approach. I think that's always a great start for good communication.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Even that question, what am I not understanding, allows you a window into their assumptions about you, right?
Yeah.
So instead of relying on your assumptions about them, you're kind of putting those to the side, you're listening, and then when you say, man, what am I not getting that you're saying? Now you're letting them share with you the assumptions that they have. And now you can kind of see the perspective that they're coming from and why they would maybe feel passionately in that conversation towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good insight.
I think also the tone idea is, the tone of our voice, because, you can raise your level of language, volume, or you get snarky words or snarky comments, or I think right now in our culture, and I think in my family, all of our words, you mentioned like the words someone says, they're all these extreme words.
Yeah.
You're either a communist or you're a greedy person. You're either a racist or you're a this. Like, we just go to these extremes. And I think in a conversation, hold on, my tone of voice is not getting snarky. I'm not making snide remarks. I'm asking those clarifying questions over and over again. It's just hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard, because when you get passionate about something, when you have an opinion and they disagree with you, that's hard.
Yeah, it is.
And you're probably, honestly, they're not going to convince you and you're not going to convince them. Yeah. So then you're stuck going,
You're just going to get more entrenched.
You're like, you just put up your own wall and you say, that's why I don't agree with you.
Yeah.
And you're stuck having to go, hold on, maybe we have to find a way out of the conversation, or just say, hey, can we just agree to disagree and move on? Because I'm not going to convince you and you're not going to convince me.
Yeah, and I think that even comes to, what's the goal of the conversation when it's
right.
something that we disagree over?
Yeah.
Is it for me to convince you, or is it for both of us to hopefully come out of the conversation respecting each other more fully?
I want to be able to, that idea of respecting, I want to be able to say, listen, I don't agree with you. I can't even see your point of view. I'm trying to, and I really can't see it, but I love you. You're my brother. You're my sister. You're my aunt. You're my uncle. Hey, let's go watch some football. Like, let's just, like, I value you as a person. You're not the enemy. You're not the person I hate. But we just disagree. And some people can do that really well and be okay to disagree and still, eat at a dining room table. Some can't, and but I think as a Christian, we got to be able to go, I totally don't agree with you, but I value you as a person. I just want you to know that. I really do value you as a person. Yeah.
And disagreement shouldn't be the end of the relationship, right? That's a cultural narrative that we've kind of gotten wrapped up in.
That's right.
When we disagree, that's the end of the relationship. I just think, even when you look at like Jesus's 12 disciples, like what a perfect example of a bunch of people who are never going to see the world the same way.
That's right.
Ever. But they all are in relationship with each other because they have Jesus. And that is what unifies that relationship. So I think especially with family members who are believers, we ought to be able to find unity with them, not on our opinions, but in what we share in
But the
Christ.
most of us, my family, there's non-believers.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you don't even have the same worldview to have a conversation with about a topic.
And does that change the goal of the conversation for you? Away from, I want to convince you or something, to I want to represent Jesus now more than I want to represent my opinion. Like, does that?
Yeah, it
does.
And in some ways, it actually makes me avoid the tension conversation, because I'm like, I don't really care where we're going to, because I just know it's going to create more tension between us. So let's find more unity somewhere. So instead of trying to have the conversation about whatever divisive topic there is, I want to just avoid that conversation so that there's still relationship.
Yeah.
You know, if it's two Christians, you can have a divisive conversation, but you can kind of come back to the center of who we are.
Yeah.
But if you are a person who totally doesn't believe in Jesus, or believes that Jesus is the racist and the power trip greedy man and the, you know, all of those things, then you're really stuck.
We're only going to find more things to divide over.
Oh, and then now you're having theological conversations with a person who doesn't even believe in theology. You know, believe that the Bible. So it's it really is goes back to your point. You have to prepare your heart, know what you're walking into. We all know the conversations we're going to have this Christmas. Mm-hmm. We all know who your Aunt Shirley's like, your Uncle Bob, and your cousin, you know, whatever. You know what parent you get along with, or blended families. You know, I love Dad. I don't love his new wife. I mean, all of those things. We already know that. So prepare.
Get ready.
And I think when we have a disagreement in a family gathering, what can easily happen is now one of us is in this corner and the other one's in this corner, and we just avoid each other the whole time. And so I want to land on this. Say things, poop hits the fan. It goes as bad as it could, right? How can I love somebody that I disagreed with? Like, and I'd love practical things that come to mind, whether they're examples or things that can kind of extend that olive branch of forgiveness and love, even in the midst of disagreement. Because as Christians, we ought to have this ethic that we're going to forgive people and we're going to seek reconciliation and peace as best we can. And so how can I extend love in a family gathering to somebody that I disagree with if we got into it or we've just been avoiding each other this whole time?
Yeah, I think looking for those points of appreciation, even if you disagree with the conclusions, if you can appreciate, man, you know, I can tell you thought a lot about this, and you know, I really appreciate about, you know, you're being very thoughtful, or you know, man, your thought process are pretty incredible. I'm not sure really I can argue with you on this, man. You know, kudos to you. I don't have any to come back. Something that just kind of acknowledges, or man, thanks for. Man, this has actually been a helpful conversation, even though we don't agree. I appreciate the way
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot. So find something in there, and then affirm them as a person, and some of the good qualities that come out, even in difficult conversation. That would be a great way I think we could show love.
And if the conversation does go south, and it's that worst case scenario, be the first to ask forgiveness. You know, send a text and say, hey, I know my tone got bad, or I made that statement and it was an overstatement and it wasn't directed toward you. I don't think you're this, that, and the other, whatever. Just be the first to acknowledge it without having to defend, everything you say.
Yeah, don't get back into it.
My tone, my word choice, and you're not even apologizing for your opinion. Just in how you expressed it in that moment. You know, I think and honestly, if it was, you know, a meal before Christmas, or send them a nicer gift next year. I don't even know, like literally give an olive branch, like, hey, here's a box of chocolates, you know, just say, please accept my forgiveness. I mean, buy their love a little bit. And no problem with that sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
I love it. It's practical.
I mean, sometimes you just gotta I really still value you. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you that by sending you an extra Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Or,
taking the initiative, finding something that you like about this person. And then I think, like you even said earlier, like now let's go do something that's a shared interest, right? So like, let's go watch football. We don't have to get into tough conversations. There's a great meme I've seen about it says, men can just sit around and share names of old sports players and have the best time, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that we don't have to disagree on any of that. We can just be like, oh, remember this guy? Remember that guy, right?
Yeah.
Like we can just sit on the couch now and have something that's of shared interest between us. and you know, I can find things that I like and appreciate about you. And honestly, I really think at a family level, at really any level with somebody, if you can't find something that you like about them, that says more about you than it says about them.
Yeah.
Right? It says more about where you're at that point. So hopefully this has been just a helpful conversation to develop some practical steps to handle some disagreement around the holidays. You guys, thanks so much for taking the time.
Sure.
Fun digging into it.
Yeah.
And as always, if you've got something practical to help in this area, you can drop that in the comments, and don't forget to share this maybe with a family member you disagree with, so they can prepare for what the holidays are going to be like. But with that said, we'll catch you guys next week on Tangible Takeaways.